What if the ailing father you came home to care for was hiding a secret life? When siblings discover a hidden room filled with surveillance files and old weapons, they realize their father may have been far from helpless, and the family's safety is suddenly in question. The old house on Maple Ridge had always been a place of comfort and chaos. For the three siblings, Ben, Rachel, and Sam, it was the backdrop to their childhood: backyard baseball, late-night arguments, and the steady presence of their father, Frank. Now, years later, they returned as adults, summoned by a call none of them wanted to receive. Frank's health was failing. The once tough patriarch was now frail, his memory slipping, his body betraying him. Ben, the eldest, took charge, organizing schedules and medications. Rachel, the peacemaker, tried to keep everyone calm. Sam, the youngest, resented being pulled away from his life in the city. The siblings bickered over everything: who would stay the night, who would cook, who would talk to the doctors. But beneath the surface, they were united by love and guilt, each wondering if they'd done enough for the man who'd raised them. Frank spent most days in his recliner, staring out the window, lost in memories. He spoke little, but his eyes were sharp, watching his children with a mix of pride and something else, something Rachel couldn't quite name. The house felt different, too. Doors that used to creak were now silent. The basement, once forbidden, was always locked. One rainy afternoon, while searching for old family photos, Sam found a loose panel in the basement wall. Behind it was a door, heavy and reinforced. The siblings stared at each other, hearts pounding. What was their father hiding? The air in the basement was thick with dust and secrets, and as Ben shined his flashlight on the door's old lock, Rachel felt a chill run down her spine. They had always respected Frank's privacy, but now, with his health failing, the rules seemed to have changed. The three of them exchanged a silent agreement: whatever was behind that door, they would face it together. With trembling hands, Ben pried open the door. The room beyond was nothing like the rest of the house. It was cold, windowless, and meticulously organized. Shelves lined the walls, filled with surveillance files, old weapons, and boxes labeled with dates and names. A desk sat in the center, covered in maps, blueprints, and a battered typewriter. On the wall, a corkboard was covered in photos, some of strangers, some of the siblings themselves. Rachel gasped as she recognized her own face in a grainy photo, taken years ago outside her college dorm. Sam found a file with his name on it, filled with notes about his friends, his jobs, even his failed relationships. Ben discovered a locked drawer containing a pistol and a stack of passports, each with a different alias. There were stacks of cash in various currencies, and a safe in the corner with a combination lock. The siblings were stunned. Their father, the man they'd come home to care for, had been watching them, and others, for decades. Was he a spy? A criminal? Or something else entirely? The room was a museum of secrets, and the siblings felt like intruders in their own family history. They confronted Frank, who only smiled. "You found my room," he said, his voice stronger than it had been in weeks. "I wondered how long it would take." His eyes sparkled with a mix of pride and mischief, as if he'd been waiting for this moment all along. The siblings demanded answers. Frank, suddenly lucid, told them the truth, at least, his version of it. He'd worked for the government, he claimed, in a special capacity. Surveillance, intelligence, protection. "I did what I had to do to keep this family safe," he said. "You have no idea what's out there." Ben was skeptical. "You spied on us. You kept secrets. That's not protection." Rachel was hurt. "Why didn't you trust us?" Sam was angry. "What else are you hiding?" Frank refused to answer all their questions, insisting some things were better left buried. But he warned them, "If you found the room, others can too. Be careful who you trust." He told them about old enemies, about threats that had never really gone away. He described a life spent looking over his shoulder, always waiting for the past to catch up. The siblings were left reeling. Their father was not the man they thought he was. The house, once a sanctuary, now felt like a fortress and a prison. That night, as they lay awake in their childhood bedrooms, each sibling wondered what else they didn't know about the man who had raised them. Unable to let it go, the siblings began to dig through the files. They found surveillance reports on neighbors, local officials, even distant relatives. Some files were decades old, others recent. There were coded messages, receipts for cash withdrawals, and letters from people they'd never heard of. One file stood out, a thick folder labeled Operation Keeper. Inside were photos of a man following Rachel, notes about Ben's business partners, and a list of threats against the family. The siblings realized Frank had been tracking potential dangers for years, sometimes intervening, sometimes just watching. But there were darker secrets, too. Files on missing persons, unsolved crimes, and a list of names with red X's through them. The siblings began to wonder if their father had crossed the line from protector to something more sinister. Sam found a newspaper clipping about a local man who had disappeared years ago, with Frank's handwritten note, "Problem solved." Rachel shivered, realizing that their father's idea of protection might have included violence. They debated what to do with the files. Ben wanted to call the authorities, but Rachel argued that exposing Frank's secrets could put them all in danger. Sam, ever the pragmatist, suggested they keep quiet and watch for any signs of trouble. The siblings were divided, but agreed to keep the discovery between themselves for now. As they pieced together the puzzle, the siblings noticed strange things happening around the house. A car parked across the street for hours. Unmarked envelopes in the mailbox. Rachel received a threatening phone call, warning her to leave the past alone. Ben's work email was hacked, and Sam's apartment in the city was broken into, though nothing was stolen. Ben wanted to call the police, but some argued they couldn't trust anyone. If Dad was right, we're in danger. The siblings set up their own surveillance, using the equipment in Frank's room. They watched as a stranger approached the house late one night, only to disappear when the lights came on. Frank, growing weaker, urged them to be careful. "You're not safe," he whispered. "They know you found the room." He told them about Victor Hale, a name that appeared again and again in the files, a former associate turned enemy, who had threatened the family in the past. The siblings realized they were caught in a web of secrets and danger, one their father had spent a lifetime weaving. The house, once a place of safety, now felt like a target. Digging deeper, the siblings uncovered more about Victor Hale. The files detailed a falling out, threats, and a series of mysterious accidents that had plagued the family over the years. Victor had once been Frank's partner in the intelligence world, but a betrayal had turned them into bitter enemies. Rachel found a letter from Victor, promising revenge. "You took everything from me. Now I'll take what you love most." The siblings realized Victor was behind the recent threats, and that their father's paranoia had been justified. They confronted Frank, who admitted he'd spent years trying to protect them from Victor. "I made mistakes," he said. "But I did it for you." He described a life of constant vigilance, always waiting for Victor to make his move. The siblings decided to fight back, using their father's surveillance skills to track Victor and gather evidence. They reached out to some of Frank's old contacts, hoping to find allies in the fight. With the help of Frank's old contacts, the siblings set a trap for Victor. They lured him to the house, using fake messages and surveillance footage. When Victor arrived, they confronted him, recording the encounter. Victor confessed to years of harassment, blaming Frank for his own downfall. He ranted about betrayal, lost opportunities, and the life he could have had. The siblings handed the evidence to the police, who arrested Victor and closed the case. Frank, exhausted but relieved, thanked his children. "You did what I couldn't," he said. "You kept the family safe." For the first time, the siblings saw their father as vulnerable, grateful for their help. With the threat gone, the siblings finally had a chance to talk to their father. Frank opened up about his past, his work, his regrets, and the choices he'd made. He apologized for the pain he'd caused, admitting he'd let fear control him. The siblings forgave him, understanding that he'd done his best in a dangerous world. They promised to stay close, to protect each other, and to never let secrets come between them again. Frank's health declined, but he died at peace, surrounded by his family. At his funeral, the siblings shared stories of the man they'd known, and the man they'd only just begun to understand. After Frank's funeral, the siblings gathered in the secret room one last time. They decided to destroy the files and weapons, closing the door on their father's secret life. They kept a few mementos, a photo, a letter, a medal, as reminders of the man he'd been. The house felt lighter, the shadows gone. The siblings stayed close, supporting each other through grief and healing. Rachel turned the house into a home for veterans, honoring her father's service. Ben and Sam started a foundation to help families affected by secrets and trauma. They realized that Frank's true legacy wasn't the secrets he kept, but the family he'd tried to protect. They vowed to honor his memory by living honestly and supporting each other. Years later, the siblings gathered at the house, now filled with laughter and hope. They remembered their father, not as a spy or a criminal, but as a man who loved his family, even if he showed it in the wrong ways. They promised to protect each other, to face the future together, and to never let fear rule their lives again. The secret room was gone, but the lessons remained. They were their father's keepers, and each other's. As the sun set over Maple Ridge, Rachel looked at her brothers and smiled. "We're safe," she said. "And we're together. That's all that matters now." If you believe in the power of truth and family, share this story with someone who needs hope. What would you do if you discovered your parents' secret life? Let us know in the comments below.